Hey friends, welcome back to that 1870s homestead. My name's Rachel, and super exciting progress being made here in the house, getting ready for seed starting. And unfortunately, like a lot of you, I don't have an extra barn or a greenhouse or even a basement for that matter that's set up for, I do have a basement by the way, but not one that has any kind of good conditions or space set up for growing starts for my upcoming garden this year. And you might be in the same situation like I am, and you have to make do with the space that you have. And for us, that means setting up a grow tower and a little greenhouse right here in our dining room. And we've been doing this for many years, and it's what works for us. And yep, we live with it like this while we're hosting people over for dinner. And it's just our real life. And it does get a little cluttered, but I know I'm saving so much money by starting my own seeds than having to go to a nursery and buy starts. I thought today I would talk a little bit about our tiny little setup that we have here. And then also very deliberately going over my seed starting schedule. So we are in Michigan, southeast Michigan. I believe we're considered zone 6A, somewhere around there. And so if you're light climates, this might be applicable to you, but if you don't know your zone, that's helpful for perennial planting, and it's a general guidance for annual planting too. But more importantly for annual planting, what you need to know is your first and last frost dates. So for me, my last frost date is typically somewhere between April 28th and May 10th. So I give myself usually, I recommend this for anyone, give yourself a 2-week buffer, and you can plan on the earliest last frost date and the latest last frost date and kind of just give yourself some wiggle room there. And then we usually go all the way till mid-October. I can't remember that date offhand. Mid-October for earliest frost date. Yes, last frost date, earliest frost date. So I am published this year our garden planner, and this is an author copy. If you buy one, it won't have this big gray banner on it. And I've been using it, and I thought I would go over with you guys my seed starting schedule. But before I do that, let's talk about how do I start my seeds and some things that are important for you to know when starting seeds for the first time. Or maybe you're just doing a lot of research this year, knowing that you're still going to buy nursery starts this year. That's totally okay. I've been there. I was there for many, many years while I was just building up the brain catalog of knowledge and the internal confidence that, okay, this is going to be the year I try to grow my own starts. And so it's just some general knowledge that I can share with you is seeds. To start seeds, a seed needs 3 things. It needs light, it needs air, and it needs, I should say the right temperature. So maybe that's a 4th thing. Light, air, and water. So those are some really important aspects to growing your right seeds. So you wouldn't want to go out and just grab any old dirt. You want really light growing medium. I usually just buy the standard like Jiffy seed starting mix. Because for me, anyone can find that. I'm not going out and buying anything special for seed starting mix. It's super light. It's mostly a peat or coconut coir with some perlite or vermiculite. Not a lot of nutrients in that soil because a seed comes in the seed casing. All of its nutrients it needs to get started. So you don't need a very nutrient dense soil. And a very heavy nutrient-dense soil can actually harm young seedling roots. They're just so fragile. So that you want to just give them a really light, airy medium, and then having lights is important. Now, we did not invest, well, we have some really cheap grow lights that go in the greenhouse right here, and we just purchased those from Walmart. I believe Fairy Morse is the brand. And my little greenhouse came from TSC like 8 years ago, and it's holding up well because we only use it indoors like this. And I think I paid $30 for that. So we don't have a lot of money into our system. For the very first time, I bought nice shelves this year. In the past, we were just using really ugly, horrendous orange shop shelving that Todd had extra in the garage. And this year, one of our kids bought a new home, and we offered him up some garage shelving. So I was like, okay, can we give him the ugly ones and then I can get new ones? And we found those at Christmas time on sale at Lowe's for, I think, $79 or $89. So a great deal. They're really heavy duty, and they're quite a bit bigger than the shop shelves that I had. So I think I'm going to be able to fit more on these. And then those lights that you see behind me are just shop lights. They're not grow lights at all, and we get by just fine with those. So just some ways that you can get entry started at a lower cost too. What else do I want to tell you? Oh, starting. Let me grab something real quick. So like I said, another super awesome way to start low cost, if you're not, I guess, rushing into it this year and you have some planning time in front of you, is I knew years and years going into this that I would one day want to be where I am today, where I'm starting my own seeds. So every time I would buy a flat from a nursery, and I still do this today because I still will go out and buy pretty annual flats at the nursery every Mother's Day with new perennials for the property or some fun annual flowers. I save all those flats from the nurseries as well as all the little containers, and I have all kinds of various sizes, and I store these after the fact in like a big tote in my garden shed, and I saved those for years, so I didn't have to invest in any kind of trays when it came time for me to start. So there's another opportunity for you. Now, these have been used, multiple times, but more importantly, every year what I do is I have to sanitize these. So I'll just get a couple sinks full of bleach water. I'll wash them thoroughly. And because soil naturally in the air and everything can carry spores and funguses and different things like that. So I wouldn't want to introduce anything that might cause, like, bring in funguses in the soil that would kill off my starts. There's like little spider webs in there. I don't want to introduce spider mites and all that kind of stuff. So just a couple other things to give you guys some tips on how I got started seed starting and what my setup looks like. So all these still need to be washed. I'm still, what is today's date? I don't even know. Maybe like Todd just yelled at me. It's the 28th. So the first seed actual seed that I'll be starting is celery, and I'll be starting that around February 10th. Now, before that, in my grow tower, I will, on February 1st, be starting my sweet potato slips. And you grow sweet potato slips from an actual sweet potato. So a sweet potato slip is the vine that grows off of a sweet potato. And then when they're about 6 inches long, and I have videos on this on how to start sweet potato slips and get them well rooted so that they're ready. That's one of the things that takes the longest time to get started and get ready for the garden. You need to plan on 12 to 16 weeks before you're ready to plant them out. And I need a lot of sweet potato slips this year. So I'm going to be starting probably about 10 sweet potatoes, more than I've ever done before. I've usually have done in the past 3 or 4 sweet potatoes at a time. And you could plan on anywhere from, I would say 8, let's just say conservatively 5 to 10 slips per potato. Now, as those initial slips grow and you start those in water, you can then break those off and start new ones as well. They're really, really easy to get started. And then they just develop roots in a jar of water. And then when it's time to plant, you put that little vine in the soil, and then that's what's going to grow you new sweet potatoes. So I'm only going to be talking about the things that I'm starting in the house, the things that I'm going to be starting as starts. Our growing season here, I believe, is like 110 days. So it's not super short, but it's not super long either. So celery, did I say 110 days? I did. So June, July, August, September. No, it's probably more like 130 days. I'll come back on a future video and clarify exactly. I've never really thought about that. I have a good 4 months of growing. So celery is February 10th. I'm going to tell you guys some tips. So if you want to take notes, you can pause the video and get a pen and paper and jot some things down. So I know people swear by light as like the number one of all the things, but I have found equally as important is the soil temperature. So what things must I start in this growing tower? And I forgot to mention that I don't have heat mats. That sits on top of a heat register. So we have a pretty cool home, so our heat runs often, and that heat register blows hot air up in that grow tower, and that's perfect for starting my seeds. It gets pretty warm and a nice humid climate in there, and I haven't found that I have required heat mats. So here's my tips. I'm going to start giving you guys some important soil temperatures for these things. Celery will, I'll just scatter that seed on top of the soil, maybe rough it in a little bit. Celery is critical. It needs light to germinate. And then it likes temperatures of 60 degrees for the soil. So I don't have to put that in my grow tower. I'll just set it over here on the grow station, and the ambient temperature of the room and the soil will be around 60 degrees. Broccoli is another thing. I tried forever, many years, trying to grow it in my little grow tower, and it would never do, or it would come up and immediately die, and I couldn't figure out why until I learned and taught myself all about the importance of soil temperature. And broccoli likes around 50 to 60 degrees for soil temperature for good germination. So we'll be doing broccoli towards the end of the month, around February 22nd. Cabbage is another thing that likes lower temperatures for soil germination. So around 60 degrees again. I'll be doing cabbage at the same time as the broccoli, February 22nd. And I'll start that on the shelving behind me, not in the greenhouse. And then we have a good break. So we're not going to be doing any kind of seed starting in March. Now I have before because I'm so anxious, and I've learned the hard way. And I've told myself this year I'm not going to do it. And that's start tomatoes and peppers too soon. So my tomato plants end up being 2 feet tall before it's time to plant them out. And I love them and they're beautiful, but I know it's not great for them. They go through more transplant shock when they're big like that, and I'm having to transplant them out. I have to dig my holes all the deeper. And it's a lot to manage when you're having to move things around and you've got a 2 foot tall plant versus a 6-inch plant. So peppers and tomatoes would be the next things. And everything else I'm going to mention in my seed starting schedule will start in the greenhouse. It needs about a 70-degree temperature of soil to start. And those are things that you would consider your summer or non-frost hardy crops. So peppers and tomatoes, I'll start the first week of April, around April 5th. Cucumbers towards the end of April, and that will be April 26th. And cucumbers are one thing I have direct sown as well. So you don't have to. You would probably, if you're in a zone similar to me, have plenty of time if you just direct sowed cucumbers. I just like to get a jump start. Squash, pumpkin, and zucchini, same thing. You do not have to start those in the house. You could start them outside, and you could even start them probably well into the season for more of a fall harvest. I just like starting them so that I like seeing green when summer comes and there's lots of growth out in the garden. So that will be my squash, pumpkin, and zucchini. I will start at the very beginning of May, so May 1st. Other things that I have started in the house are sunflowers, and maybe a couple other flowers I've tried to start. Herbs is another great thing to start in the house, and I'm surprised I don't have that on the list. Basil. You know what? I need to look up basil and put that on my seed starting schedule, because basil's going in the garden. And I'm looking at my direct sow schedule, and I don't have basil on the list. So basil herbs would be another great thing to research. How many weeks before your last frost date should you be starting your seeds? And plan on starting those inside. And then just remember, when you're doing that, Google what is the right soil temperature for germination of that type of plant. And that'll tell you, do I need a warmer environment, or is ambient room temperature in my house going to be good enough? And then other things that I've been doing to prepare for this event of starting seeds in my house is, like I said, buying the soil. I went out to the garden shed and I got my big tub, because one of the things that I recommend that you do, that I always do, is I sterilize my soil. Now, I know that sounds funny, and you think soil these days would come to you high quality, sterilized already. That's just not the case. So what you can do, again, for the purposes of combating fungus, any kind of mites, gnats, things like that are in your like store-bought soil that would contribute to killing off your seedlings, is I use a big white tub and I dump as much soil as I can fit in there, and then I pour a whole pot of boiling water over it, maybe even 2 pots, depending on how much soil is there. And then I stir that all around. I mean, it is scalding hot, steam's going everywhere, and then I just let it cool before I use it. So every now and then I'll go through and give it a stir just to make sure it's cooling off okay. And I'll probably do that a couple days before, like February 10th, when I start my celery. I'll just get my soil sterilized so it's ready to go. Mycorrhiza, I purchased that. So let me grab that and show you. Whoops. So I won't need this until it's time to pot things up. And potting things up is when, you know, you've started your little seedlings in the tray, and now they're, you know, when that, like I mentioned, that first soil doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it. Once they get, you know, 3 or 4 sets of true leaves, they really need to go into now growing conditions. A bigger pot, and I use plastic solo cups, a bigger growing vessel, and they start needing to need some nutrients. So you're going to give them some better, like actual potting soil. And when I do that, I use this stuff. This is called Mycobliss, and it's basically a mycorrhiza inoculant that I dip the roots in, and it gives the roots just a little boost to go out and search. It feeds them, and it tells them to, I forget exactly what it does. It basically tells them to go and get more nutrients from everything. It's really smart. It's actually a living thing. Promotes vigorous plant growth, decreases the amount of water and fertilization. And why it says that is because it tells the roots to go and get. So they're spreading out, they're going deeper and getting just a lot of good nutrients. So, and I swear by that stuff. I call it my garden fairy dust. And I'll use this again then when it comes time to transplant out in the garden. And it doesn't take a lot. It's just like a little dusting on the roots. And what else have I bought? Well, Todd gifted me some nice little, you know, tags to put in my seed trays, so I know what's what, because every year, no matter what, I end up forgetting which tomatoes are in which cell. So this year I can try to do a better job on that. Oh, and then I bought the seeds. I'm in my last video with you guys where we were doing the garden planning. I mentioned that on my to buy list was I needed more carrots, and to order my onion starts, and I have purchased my carrots. And thank you guys for those that mentioned that the red noodle beans wouldn't can good. I'm glad you told me that, because I did go and just buy some more Blue Lake pole beans. And one of the other things that you could be doing during this time, like I said, March is kind of going to be a lull month. Of course, I'm going to be caring for the things that are growing, but it's not going to be much at that time, is continue to do your research. What I'd encourage you to research is like watering schedules, knowing what plants need, like how much water on a weekly basis. One of the things I would recommend also is just researching, you know, companion planting. What things do you want to grow together? And I'll tell you how my brain thinks about this, and it's not necessarily the right way. It's just what I prefer to do. Is I like to grow things together that like to be fed similarly. So if I have things that are heavy nitrogen feeders or rooting vegetables that need lots of bone meal, things like that, I would prefer to grow those at least near each other so that I'm focusing on the proper feeding in sections versus, you know, growing two things together that if I overfeed nitrogen in this raised bed, it might hinder a plant growing next to it. So just something to research, just understanding there's garden prep you should plan on doing. Not everybody does it. It's just what I do. But I think it pays off dividends, is just prepping your beds a couple weeks before going out and planting, getting it the all-purpose fertilizer in there, and any additional amendments that what you're going to grow in that space would need. What other things? I've been researching specifically growing wheat because wheat is a new thing for me this year. So there's a lot of learning that goes on there for me. So I'm just taking it all in as much as I can. And I think that's it. You know, we are going to stick to like vegetable gardening in today's video because there's lots of other things I could be talking about with, you know, coming to the end of winter, early spring on what to be thinking of when it comes to pruning your perennials, dividing things like strawberries and rhubarb and all that kind of stuff. But we're not going to get into, we'll keep that in a different video for another day. But yeah, it's just what we were doing today. We were getting all of the stations set up and getting all the supplies in the house so I could at least start getting everything cleaned. And it's ready to go when it's time to put those first seeds in the soil. So thanks, guys, and happy growing and gardening where you are. And if you're not starting your own seeds this year, that is 100% okay. Just know that there is a time in your future, if you so desire, where it is possible. Believe me, I was so intimidated. I didn't think I would have success, and but just research. Use your garden journal, whatever it is that you're using to take down your notes. Start saving supplies. And in the future, you can save yourself a ton of money because a packet of seeds for us anyway, coming from In My Gardener, is like $2 versus, you know, a flat is what, $12 or $15, and $2, I could probably grow 3 flats of things. So pretty amazing cost savings there. Of course, soil, but that Jiffy soil is pretty cheap. So just excited to get growing with you guys and hope that you're excited too and you're feeling that spring itch coming around. Just be patient. Try not to start things too early. Start them on time. And then I would also encourage you, start more than you need. That's something I always do. I'll use an example. So celery. I want 6 celery plants. I will probably start 12 seeds just to be certain I get 6. And then I'll either thin them or I will share. So if I say I thin them down to 8, I'll give 2 away. And then so things like that. I always start more than I need, and then I can either thin or share with our family. So I will see you guys on the next video. I know I've been saying goodbye forever, but that's the Midwest in me. So I'll talk to you guys on the next video.